Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution, where we're committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It is Thursday. What day is it? Thursday, February 26th. It's 10 a.m. Central, and I'm Danielle Walker. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the Watchdog in Chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander. Good morning, Chris.
Well, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
And we are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also always catch us later on our audio-only podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcast. Well, today we have a real treat for you, and I'm so excited that we were able to get him in before the primary. Let me bring Doc forward, and I will make his introduction. Dr. Pete Chambers is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant, Special Forces Green Beret, and Combat Wounded Purple Heart recipient, and a physician with nearly 40 years of distinguished military service, including multiple overseas deployments, and the first doctor to complete the full Green Beret qualification course. He's a dedicated healer and warrior. He served as a special ops flight surgeon, emergency room physician, and task force surgeon on the Texas border during Operation Lone Star. I can't even imagine how many stories you have, Doc. He is a vocal advocate for medical freedom, veterans' health, and constitutional rights, having whistleblown on COVID-19 on the vaccine mandates, and now he's running for governor of Texas, and he brings a servant leader's heart to the fight for secure borders, election integrity, property tax relief, and putting Texas first. He's not a career politician. He is a proven patriot ready to defend freedom. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Danielle and Chris. It's great to be here with my neighbors to the east.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to have you, Doc. We're so excited about your candidacy. Before we get into it, let me read the scripture of the day. And I just want to say the Lord just showed me something completely new about this scripture this morning. So hopefully y'all will enjoy it as much as I did. But it's John chapter 10, verses 8 through 15. And it says, "All of those who broke in before me are thieves who came to steal, but the sheep never listened to them. I am the gateway. To enter through me is to experience life, freedom, and satisfaction. A thief only has one thing in mind. He wants to steal, slaughter, and destroy. But I have come to give you everything in abundance, more than you expect. Excuse me. Life in its fullness until you overflow. I am the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep." And I think I'm supposed to keep going here. "But the worker who serves only for wages is not a real shepherd, because he has no heart for the sheep. He will run away and abandon them when he sees the wolf coming. And then the wolf mauls the sheep, drags them off, and scatters them. I alone am the good shepherd, and I know those whose hearts are mine, for they recognize me and know me, just as my Father knows my heart, and I know my Father's heart. I am ready to give my life for the sheep." And what the Lord showed me this morning is Jesus is the perfect model of leadership, and we can see that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if people who have broken in are stealing, killing, and destroying, isn't it important to have leaders who recognize that they are the enemy? This passage about Jesus is about Jesus being the gateway to spiritual freedom and being our perfect shepherd who leads us and protects us. But it's also an incredibly accurate and timely picture of the contrast between the heart of a leader who loves the people and is willing to lay down his life for the people, and those who are just there to collect a paycheck, or worse, to actually destroy the people. This is a very powerful and clear measure by which to determine what kind of leader someone is.
Yeah. Danielle, it's so powerful because you're alluding to uh, quislings or interlopers in our midst, people even right around us who do not have our best interests at heart, people around us who act like they're loyal, pretend that they're loyal, and have our best interests at heart, when in reality, they really don't. And it's very difficult sometimes to be able to distinguish between who your true friends are and who your pseudo friends are. And really, it's the Holy Spirit that gives us that insight and that ability to see things that
Oh,
perhaps are not readily apparent to the natural eye.
yeah. And
And
Chris, I'm sorry, it looks like Doc, are you having trouble hearing? I don't know if he can hear us. I don't know what's going on with the volume there. Nothing. Let me see if I can do anything on my side. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chris.
oh, no problem at all.
Hmm.
The devil sometimes will try to see. I always know, Daniel, I've come to take the cues. When things like this happen, that is my number one sign that the devil does not want the world or the state to hear what we have to say
Yeah.
today.
Go ahead. Go out and come back in, Doc.
Yeah.
I'll,
Danielle, have you
yeah.
noticed a pattern here? I've noticed a
Yeah.
pattern.
Well, we were just beforehand praying with Doc and letting him know that we regularly have to pray for our tech because it seems that there tends to be interference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this tells me that the devil doesn't want the state, well, Louisiana and Texas, to hear the information. They don't want them to hear the truth. But guess what? We don't back down. We trudge through. That's what the state of freedom is all about. And we're going to trudge through today and make sure that the truth gets out there because this guy, Doc Chambers, Danielle, is extraordinary. I mean, just
Yeah. You
extraordinary.
got us, Doc?
Yeah, I just came out and back in. Sorry,
Perfect.
I don't know
Super,
what happened. We're getting attacked.
super.
We're
Yeah.
getting
Well,
attacked.
exactly. Doc, I was just telling Danielle that you always know. I've learned to understand the patterns. Whenever there's really good stuff that we're about to put out there that's going to nurture people, inspire people, the devil tries to block us. But guess
That's
what? Won't happen. We're
Doc,
gonna trudge forward, and it
yeah.
is so good to have you here, Doc,
Thank you.
today.
were
I
you
mean,
able, Doc, to hear the scripture? Because I feel like
I
it was
did.
probably you did. Okay, good. Because
It
I
was
thought it was
apropos, and then it just cut off
yeah.
right at the end of the scripture. And I was like,
yeah,
and I'm sitting here thinking Ezekiel 33, the watchman, and that's my job, right?
Oh,
I've stood on walls around the world and looked at foreign countries that were, potentially going to attack us. And so I'm thinking, this is the watchman, and if I don't tell them, it's on my head. But if I tell them, then it's on their head, right? And it's not
yeah.
a penance thing. It's just listen, hear, perceive, understand. So yes, it was perfect.
it's so
Incredible.
powerful that Doc, you say that because you're saying in Ezekiel, we're charged with making sure that we do everything we can to get the message out. How
Sure,
people respond to it is between them and God.
that's it.
But we do the best we can.
As a guy that worked the border and briefed the current governor directly one time and his staff numerous times, and the Texas Military Department, if I'm giving a warning, I'm a senior guy that has some experience in counterterrorism, global war on terror for 20 years. We know, so you would think, well, I'm going to listen to this guy, and it is what it is. Commanders don't always listen to you. But
Yeah.
in the state of Texas, it's incumbent upon the governor by his job description. He's the commander in chief of all forces in Texas. That's the 30th largest army in the world. We got a
Wow.
large component.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's amazing. Uh, Doc, I'm always inspired when I read about war heroes, and I know that we have a lot of men in our audience, and I would like to ask you about your military service first, particularly about your background in the Green Berets and your
Sure.
being awarded the Purple Heart.
Right.
What does it take, Doc, to be a Green Beret?
It takes audacity, a little bit of resilience, faith for me. It took me 3 times to get through the course. That's a year and a half long. Now, I was a
Wow.
heat casualty one time. I couldn't help it. I got into the cadre about a land nav course. I'm going to always lose. I was just a student. And so, but to Be relentless. That's the word. And that's the word we're using in our campaign. We only have 10 people on staff and they're all volunteers. We have probably 1,500 volunteers outside that are knocking on doors, hanging things on doorknobs. But this is a moment of to be relentless because of the stakes. They're so high right now.
Yeah.
So
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
Well, so the Green Beret,
Mhm.
it's important for people to understand this so they'll know a
Right.
little bit more about you. So
Sure.
you didn't get through the course the first or the second time. You got through the third time.
That's right. And I'm proud
Wow.
to say it because I've experienced everything. I didn't get any special favors. You know, when I went to the course, I was the first doctor to be chosen to go in modern era. And then they did an abbreviated course for docs in the past, in the 70s, Vietnam War. And they came back now and said, okay, we want a guy to go. I had already submitted a packet. They wouldn't let me go. They said, we don't send doctors. And so I finally said, I'm going to resign my commission as going as a listed guy. I came in 1983 under Ronald Reagan as an enlisted, 18-year-old. And then got out, 9/11 happened, came back in. So for me, because I had been working with Green Beret since 2003 as a doctor, I wanted to go, forward because I knew if we took medicine forward, we could bring more people home. So I wanted the same training. They finally relented, and they said, okay, we're going to send you, but this has never been done before. And this is kind of where we're at right now, if you think about it. It's never been done before, but we're going to send you. So I went through selection and all that. And we got 5 other doctors through, which is great because we have many different areas of responsibility around the world. We conduct unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, weapons of mass destruction, bioweapons. I mean, we understand these things. That's what we're trained to do. I was a flight surgeon with them. So, Halo operators, guys jumping out really high out of planes. And so going through the same training then brought me into a world of now they completely trust me on the battlefield to be right there to defend patients if I have to, defend myself, but more so to get the guys off the X when they got a hole in them and stop the bleeding and get on the bird with them and fly back to the combat surgical hospital. But it also put me in a place where I had to negotiate with generals of foreign countries and a king of one country and come back to DC and brief Congress. And as my rank continued up from captain to major to lieutenant colonel, where I retired at, there was more and more responsibility. But when you learn that from everything from the tactical on the ground to the geopolitical level, because that's what we have to do, it puts you in a place where it's a moment such as this.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
What's the hardest part about getting through to the finish line as a Green Beret? Getting through the training.
It's a marathon, and there's so many different aspects to the training. And probably physically, the hardest part was SEER, because you're not intentionally fasting, but you are not eating. SEER is survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. But eventually, you get captured and you become a prisoner of war, and you understand what you have to go through. And it's a mock-up, but it's pretty rough. And you're not eating, you're on the go, you're being chased, you're eating snakes. I mean, we ate 3 water moccasins out there and a roadkill possum. You're going to eat, and we're going to have pine needle tea every day because this is in Western North Carolina. So, but you drink the pine needle tea, and that really has a lot of good effects in there, a lot of vitamins. But that was the hardest physically, but also mentally. It is the worst course you could possibly go to because me, as a senior ranking guy going through it, I mean, you're getting in close to real world interrogation as they can get without hurting you, and you have to learn to listen, think, pause, respond, talk, speak clearly, succinctly, and not give away secrets of your mission. And so it's that's about all I can say about that because it's very guarded in the particulars.
Sure.
But it is the worst possible course in the world, but it was the best possible course in the world because you learned your limitations.
Yeah.
You learned what you were capable of doing.
Did you ever think about when you didn't make it the first couple of times, giving up?
No, there was a curmudgeon day for a while there, and when I was a heat casualty, I didn't have much choice. I mean, I had rhabdomyolysis, so I couldn't really go through the course in summertime. So they just waited for a little bit, sent me through the hard course, the field course, and small unit tactics in the wintertime, which then I wasn't susceptible to heat casualty, and so that's good, right? And I've learned. We had 17 guys go down that day at Fort Bragg at one of the training events, and I was one of them. So that's okay. We come back or we don't. Some people opt out, but that's the resilience part.
Yeah.
And Doc,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you were first joining us, you mentioned that you had at one point briefed Governor Abbott about the
Mhm.
situation on the border. Would you tell us a little bit about
I'll
what
tell
that
you the whole,
briefing?
yeah, I'll tell you the whole story. We had 17,000 Haitians show up overnight in a 24-hour, 48-hour period in the town called Del Rio. And in that town, it almost, it definitely doubled the size of the town, but it just
Wow.
overwhelmed everything. But when we got there, it was 40 of us on the ground. And there was probably about 20, 30, Border Patrol and some troopers, state troopers. But what ended up happening was we were expecting about 700 because that's a typical night. You get 700 to 1,000. This was overwhelming. By the time morning light came, we were holding them pretty well at the border, not coming across. And by morning, they saw the light and knew they could come around us, and they did. If you
Wow.
people remember, the horse guy, Border Patrol guy on the horse, they said he was whipping people. He wasn't. It was a split rein. It was split rein. They're not tied together, so
Hmm.
it just caught the motion. But yeah, it's unbelievable. It is combat is insanity that's tangible, and with the border, that was an invasion, a human osmotic wave invasion, but it's part of a which we call a color revolution to transfer, migrate, etc. But when I went into the hangar at Del Rio, and the governor wanted to meet certain people. I was the only Green Beret on the border. I was there with my dog. He's laying on the floor here, and I got on my knee and I said, "Sir," I said, "we've got just one of me. I need more of me because we got a big problem down here. And in a few years, and this was 4 years ago, in a few years, there's going to be lily pads. Lily pads are enclaves of people from foreign countries that don't want to assimilate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That don't want to
Okay.
assimilate, and they will bring in their laws. They will bring in their culture's okay. We like culture. Texas has a lot of cultures. Got Germans, Czechs, Mexicans, Africans, Irish, Vietnamese. Love cultures, but you've got to assimilate because you cannot force the culture, or sorry, the laws of your land upon a constitution that already exists, and
Yeah.
that's subversion. That's subversion. And so, in a color revolution, that's a phase. Because I'm the guy that's trained to go down range in other places, and I spent 20 years going back and forth to all these other countries. When I came home, I went, whoa, 2015, when I came back, whoa, what's going on in my country? What's going on to Texas? And I was in the Texas National Guard for the last 8 years of my life. And in that briefing, that's what I said. He looked at the general that was standing next to us and said, let's get some more Green Berets. Unfortunately, here's the thing. Strongly worded letters without authorities lead to nothing.
Yeah.
That's just that simple. Strongly worded letters. So say, we're not going to have Sharia law. We're not going to have this. We're not going to have that. Okay. But you have to give authorities the people that can then do the network analysis to see, are they connected to something like a foreign terrorist organization or a transnational criminal organization? We recommended to his staff numerous times, and it didn't poll well, so they didn't do it.
Yeah. You mentioned Sharia law. Chris, you're talking with no mic, but
Because it didn't poll well?
Well, we can read between the lines. They'd say, well, thank you for the brief, and then we go on. Matter of fact, my sergeant major, who is a Cajun, he's from down by Beaumont there, right across the way there, Lake Charles. He came in and briefed, and he said it in his eloquent Southern Louisiana. He said, "What we got here now? We got to deliver some enemy down here, and maybe we have to shoot at some of them." And they just kind of shook, because when they're shooting at us, our rules of engagement, and this is going to make William Barrett Travis, as we're in the phase right now, the 190 years ago, the Alamo, William Barrett Travis, commander of the Alamo, would roll over in his grave if he knew that the rules of engagement for us on the border were, well, get in your Humvees and drive away if the cartel shoots at you.
That's insane.
We don't want an incident. This is Texas.
Were those orders, Doc, was that an order from the governor himself?
Well, the governor is the commander. The governor is the commander in chief. So, I learned as a soldier, you're responsible for everything that happens or fails to happen, especially as a commander in chief. It came down from the Texas Military Department, went through the lawyers, and they all wrote stuff. And we've got these, 10 or 12 rules of engagement that says, just get in your Humvees. They're up armored. And that's the most casualty producing time on the battlefield, is when you turn your back to the enemy and run.
No
right.
kidding.
That's just the medical side of it. But the fact that there's a certain prestige, esprit de corps, that's expected of Texas, and to run away, that Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, a lot of these states that are what they consider flyover states, produce the bulk of the war fighters that go into the military, because they have a certain sense of loyalty and patriotism. I've served for many years, 39 total between active guard and reserves. I'm going to tell you, that what we have down there is a failure to communicate truth, because then the optic of Operation Lone Star did not match the reality. We counted heads, and we had no authorities to do anything other than get on the news when Bill Malugin from Fox News came down and said, you don't say this to him, don't say that to him.
Yeah. And Doc, that matches with what we had. JJ Carroll, I'm not sure if you're familiar with
I
him,
know him.
Border Patrol agent. Yeah, we had him on the show several times, and that matches precisely with his experience of just having his hands tied at the border and being completely unable to do anything to protect the people or to stop the hemorrhaging of these people coming across the border. Is this what got you into the governor's race?
I think that what got me into the governor's race is obviously it does help to be, a guy that's going to take a commander-in-chief job. But really, it was here's the honest truth. When I left in 2022 after getting fired from the border for doing informed consents, whole nother story. When I left, I had plenty of time to retire, so I got out. But then I testified in the SEALs versus Lloyd Austin. I went to bat for our DOD soldiers against the DOD. Right? Do you want somebody to be governor that's willing to go against the federal government if they're overreaching? Exactly. So, but it was a Pentecost of last year at a group of people up in Bonham, Texas, who I love dearly, and some people from out of state came in and we had a campfire. And then it was an ambush. You know what they did? They said, Doc, would you run for governor? I'm like,
that is an
no.
ambush, a
Oh,
political
no.
ambush.
No, I was working on a counter human trafficking team and an election integrity team, and we were looking at servers and the source codes coming out of Venezuela and Serbia. We were doing that kind of stuff at a think tank, more of a do tank, and I was very happy with what we were doing. But it's all these things are building blocks to get me to where I'm at now, to go, oh, now that's why I know, it's like a Swiss Army knife. I know a lot of different things. I know a little bit about a lot of different things. And so there are certain things that I know a lot of in my specialty in the military and in leading men and women. And so for me, when they said that, I said, I'll pray about it for a week. And then we left out and went to Mississippi, and we did a counter human trafficking deal out there. And then I just prayed every day. I said, I'll give you a week and then I'll let you know. And I kept saying, Lord, just if this your will be done. And that's possibly the most dangerous prayer you could pray if you're not looking for trouble.
That's right.
I mean, so because this is trouble. But you get out there, and then he just never said no. And on the last day, I was like, Lord, just say no, because I knew what it was. I knew that I was going to have to become an open book, and my life is now. Everybody knows it. And there's things that they're making up about my life. They're just not, not me. But we expect that. If you're over the target, we expect that. So it's been fascinating. It's tiring, but I'm relentless. And my dad was a small town doctor when he started, and I used to ride with him and do house calls while he was in the country. And he would trade for things. He had a servant's heart, but he grew up in a war-torn country in Eastern Europe. So against communists as well, not only Germans that came in. So he taught me to be an American, right? He assimilated the U.S. culture. Didn't speak his language in the house. He just wanted me to serve when I did, and I did at 18. He took me down at 17, and that's where it all started, the training for this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Doc, what is the fundamental difference between you and Governor Abbott on the border issue? And talk about his failures on the issue. I was looking at it this morning, and his position is that he has expended millions and millions of dollars to secure the Texas border. Nobody's doing more. Nobody's done more. Right. That is a massively important issue. And it's not just important for Texas. It's important for Louisiana. We're right next to you and other states. What is the core difference between you and Abbott on the border, and talk about his record? Right.
So his record on the border has been, if I were to grade it, I'm just going to be very factual and just from an objective point of view, his grade is probably a D-. If you're talking about it in the optic side, he probably gets a B+. The optic look, we had floaties in the river, we had fences being built, chain link. But if you go down to those fences now and you see where they're cutting through them and all the patchwork that's in the fences, you realize unless you guard it 24/7, which you can't, you have to shut down the port of entry. Trump came in, and you mentioned earlier, Danielle, a hemorrhage. Trump came in and put a tourniquet on the border. The numbers are down. That's great. That helps us. because now we're not looking for a needle in a stack of needles, but we still have bad guys coming across. And now the wave of human trafficking has gone to other places. It's moved because they couldn't do it through the chaos. It used to be in the chaos of people they would do that. So here's the deal. When this is an invasion, and I feel sorry for a lot of people that have been used as pawns, but it was a scheme. It was created by NGOs, money from Soros, money from the Clinton Foundation. We know that, like we've seen it firsthand. You ask somebody where they come from in Venezuela or from Hades particularly, and they got a WhatsApp and they go, well, here's my map and this is how I got here. Oh, wow. I mean, they'll just tell you, like, yeah. Oh, the Clintons, they help us. I'm like, oh, great. So now you see these things, and then they get a bag when they come across the border from UNESCO, United Nations organization. It's got a phone in it, and it's got a money card. And then this was happening for a long period of time until it was exposed. And when it was exposed, it kind of just disappeared. But that was taxpayer dollars that went into that. The Red Cross was helping them. Other charities out there, religious charities, were doing the same thing. So if you don't investigate it, so he did not investigate to the level that was required in order to stop what was really happening. He did not provide anything other than the optic. That floaty device is about a mile long. We got 1,254 miles of border. Now, wow. it wasn't a good idea anyway. It really just looked good from a photo op, as you see the red floats in the river. We were counting heads. Okay, so for me, I give authorities to the people that know what they're doing. We have a robust military in Texas. We got several special operations units as well in the National Guard. We have an air guard. We have air capacity. I couldn't get a helicopter to fly from McAllen to Del Rio or to the Big Bend when I needed. I had to drive hours to get these locations. I'm not looking for comfort. I'm looking for efficiency. So if you're dedicated to protecting your citizens by Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution, it's incumbent upon the governor to defend the borders in an invasion. It was declared. They declared an emergency on the border. Okay, then what are the teeth in it? So you got a strongly worded letter, no authorities, nothing's going to happen. And then the final thing is when they did show up, and I found this out firsthand when I followed the Venezuelans that came in Eagle Pass, 12,500 of them came in over a 48-hour period. Many of them with Tren de Aragua, so TDA that everybody talks about. Mm-hmm. Aragua is a region of Venezuela where there's a big prison. Many of those were let out. And you know how you can tell when somebody's TDA? They got a tattoo of an AK-47 on their face. Probably not here to sell flowers. So if I'm looking at that, and then we followed them, right? Because I was out of the military at that point, conducting essentially open source intelligence. We just followed them, and they put them on buses, took them over to the convention center in San Antonio, and I'm trying to sound the alarm with the other entities and say, this is what's happening, because the governor's not listening to us. At this point, I'm adamant about it. And then the governor puts them on buses and sends them around the country. And then you saw the first TDA event in Aurora, Colorado. So when you're busing people in, you're actually aiding and abetting the invasion. So I would probably not do that. Now they claim, the lawyers claim that there's a loophole where a governor can do that. What? That's right. And so it's tongue in cheek. Oh, it looks good. We sent them to Chicago, but you just destabilize Chicago. Hundreds of thousands of people.
Why not, Doc, if you're in that situation and you're the governor of Texas and you have 12,500 foreigners from Venezuela pouring into the country in a 48-hour period, and you're governor of Texas, what do you do in that situation?
Well, first of all, I make it a requirement to have biometrics done. We got to have, either DNA or facial scans so that we can see where they go. Second of all, I can't affect immigration at the governor level other than lobby up the chain.
I'm talking about if you are. I'm saying if Doc Chambers is the governor, hypothetically, in that situation.
Well, absolutely. So I would conduct the biometrics the second that they come across, right? But before they come across, you've got to shut down the ports of entry. Now, there's a nuance there because the federal government doesn't really own, but they control a certain amount of space coming into Texas. So for me, we just set back a little bit and we stop them at the next checkpoint, which is Texas. And then we take them and put them in detention centers and humanitarian detention centers, not just letting them walk through the desert and die. And we can have air conditioning, all those things, tents, connexes, same things that we lived in downrange, bring them food, get them MREs, whatever it takes, so that we can repatriate them back with, the Tom Homan's teams and ICE and make it a lot easier for them. Really, we have to work in conjunction here. And one step further, we need to create, and I've already started working on this with Oklahoma, the next people that are going to come into office there, the lieutenant governor and governor, if they come in, but even with the current, a coalition of states around us, right? We can't get New Mexico to play, right? But we'll try. But we have to have a coalition of states, because then it has more, it has more power together. It's not a secession, it's a coalition of states, so that we can say we're banding together and we're going to do what's called mutual aid. I've seen Louisiana troops here, I've seen Florida troops here, South Dakota. Those are mutual aid agreements made between governors. But for me, I would rather have them on my border so that we can take care of each other and then be able to back each other's play.
Yeah.
And Doc, it's so interesting what you say about Governor Abbott sending some of those sending some of those invaders to Chicago, because at the time, people cheered it on. It was really just a PR stunt that was participating in the treachery of allowing these illegals to flood through the country. That's incredible.
And we have to look at the second and third order effects of why it was done at the time it was done. He was going into a primary with Alan West, Don Huffines, Chad Prather, three pretty well-known people. Unfortunately, they split the ticket. They didn't make it in. But anytime he goes into a primary, and people in Texas will tell you that, because they don't watch Fox News in Texas, right? We watch the mid-level local channels and things like this. And then for me, there will be a paradigm shift, because none of those large agencies or large media corporations are even telling people that right now Pete Chambers is coming and closing in pretty fast on the pole position. So for me, I just know that we're going to have a paradigm shift. I won't get on any of those news stations. I'm angry at them. You're ineffective and you don't tell the truth. So that's kind of like Trump saying fake news. Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
Right.
Doc, what do you think? I'm actually stunned by this. 100 years ago, 125 years ago, I mean, you have these people, we don't know who they are. We have no idea who they are. As you've said, as it turns out, many of them were gang affiliated, had been released from maximum security prisons in Venezuela. And the governor of Texas is releasing them into the interior of our country. I think we cannot overemphasize this. I just think that absolutely stuns me, that the governor of a border state would allow that to happen. I don't care if he's releasing them and sending them to Chicago. The last time I checked, Chicago is part of the United States. It's part of our country. These people should have been turned around and, as you said, humanely repatriated back to their own country right then and there. And I just seems to me that in and of itself, if I knew nothing else about your race, that is disqualifying to me.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, and again, I'm going to take it back to this Constitution. This is an old copy, 1930s copy, but this is Texas's. And it says in here, it's incumbent upon the governor to protect the state. Article 4, Section 7. If you don't, you're derelict of duty. At that point, now you're held to a higher standard because you are the commander in chief. So I take those jobs seriously. I read the job descriptions. Not only am I responsible for the budget in the state of Texas, but I'm responsible to the people of Texas to protect them. That's the bottom line, the baseline of everything. We have a national defense. We have a state defense, the 30th largest army in Texas. So we got to take these things serious. If you've got those resources and you truly care about your citizens, then that's where you focus. Nothing happens in a vacuum either, though. We're the 8th largest economy in the world, equivalent to Russia in GDP. So if we're looking at that, those things do come together. Because you've destabilized, you've disenfranchised. These are Marxist techniques. These are Cloward-Piven doctrine. This is other techniques to destabilize and then to overthrow without firing a shot.
Yeah. And Doc, some of the people who came across the border came from the Middle East. And I would be interested to know, I think probably a lot of Afghan refugees made it here after that huge botched withdrawal at Abbey Gate. Would you talk about the surge of Sharia law and Muslims in Texas? This has been going on for a long time. I was at my nail salon not too long ago, and my manicurist used to work and live in Irving. And she said that Irving is overrun by Muslims.
Yes, ma'am. That was when I mentioned before, the lily pad, that's the term that we use. It's just kind of setting up a place to then come in peacefully and become a neighborhood. And if it stops there and you want to have your culture in your neighborhood community center, sounds good to me. But you can't change the whole community center. What if it was a bunch of Baptists that said, we're not letting anybody come into this neighborhood? And just
Right.
changed all the signs. You can't do that, because there is in the sense of, even though we're a melting pot, we want you to bring your culture with you. But we don't want you to do is to bring in that Sharia law. Now, Sharia law, very astute with this. I speak, 2 languages in the Middle East and understand the Quran. That would never assimilate to democratic forms of government. We are a constitutional republic. Right? That's the key. It will never, ever go there. So Sharia law was created way back in the day to judge those in their culture, but also those others who don't assimilate, don't become Muslim, and they either pay a tax or by the verse of the sword, they die. Now, it's not that bad. We know that. But the way that things incrementally expand, 400 some odd mosques in Texas, we're right behind
400?
400. Abilene right now, a new one. Huntsville, where the prison is, a new one. Everywhere I go, people are like, over there, they're putting in a new cultural center and then mosque. And there aren't that many Muslims here, but they become a place for them to go to. Now I've got a flagpole, this lily pad flagpole, and then they start going there. And so it's slowly encroaching insidiously right under the governor's nose. 120 countries were represented coming across the border when I worked there. It's not the typical Mexican guy or family that's coming across to get a green card, work during the season, and go back. That's been going on since the days of Pancho Villa and before. What I'm talking about now is an intentional transfer migration to bring in people that do have intent upon it. Do the first families that come out, or the ones that came across the border, little kids, they don't know what they're getting into, because they promised them something that the land of milk and honey was just going to be open to them. But it's not how it works. And then they would give them a date, three years out, some of them 2 years out, to go to court to then find out, was there asylum seeking, because that's all about asylum. When you come from countries that aren't in a civil war, you can't get asylum, right? So they use that to then build an app on a phone, CBP One app, so they could go ahead and apply for it. So when they got here, they just went, here you go, here's my my court date.
They've got, in other words, they've already got a pending application, and so they're not immediately deportable.
Correct, because the rule is they have to do from the contiguous country that they come in from. So they get into Mexico, fill it out. Now they're in the contiguous country, and people from Peru, people from Oman, people from Qatar, Hezbollah and Hamas actors that come through Venezuela and got their documentations changed to Venezuelan, and just don't say a word when they come across, in a group of 900 people in Roma at the low water crossing. And so that's the reality of what it was. And so Trump put the tourniquet on. That's good. But can I, as the governor, who's responsible to protect the state from overreach of federal government and their certain enumerated powers in the federal constitution, can I in good conscience say, well, we'll just wait and see what happens with the next president, or we'll see if there's not another? They're stacking up on the border right now, right? They're stacking up, not just the Texas border, but all the way down to the Darien Gap, which is in Panama, all the way down to Peru. They're sitting, because we do have eyes and ears out there that are paying attention. This is a Green Beret buddy of mine in the Darien Gap, reports to me and says, hey, this is what's going on. His name is Michael Yon, great guy to get on the show.
Yeah, we'd love to have him.
Yeah.
But Doc, how do you get them out now?
Right. So now we have a Houston, we have a problem, right? So this is a problem, but there is no problem, and we're not over a precipice that we can't handle. What we have to do is we have to quickly cycle. It's a cycle that we use to identify who's assigned to what terrorist organization. Like we said recently, going into a primary, governor just recently said Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR are FTO, foreign terrorist organizations. Okay, that's a fight. Now they're in court and they're arguing about it. But there's about 9 other organizations out there that should have been that as well. Wow. So we've got to identify all 9. We got to put a little more money in the emergency fund of Texas is about $30 billion for rainy day fund. So we can then build up our state guard to the point where we already have a state guard, not National Guard, state guard. It's Texas militia. It's been around since the 1800s. So there's 16 states that have those, and they fall underneath the Texas Military Department. There's 2 legs of it, National Guard, State Guard. We build that up so that they can't be deployed downrange. They belong to the state, to me. and we build that back up, a lot of people will leave the National Guard and come to the State Guard because they don't want to deploy. I deployed 4 times in Texas Guard to places downrange in undeclared wars. And so we've got to do better than that. And we've got to consider that there is a darker, deeper, run by principalities, rulers of darkness, whatever you want to call it, but put it in that dotted line. World Economic Forum, globalist, transhumanist, corporatocracies, because Texas has become an investment tool. If you're the 8th largest economy in the world, there's a target. And the investment tool is a lot of foreign people that are coming in and buying up land, and in conjunction with legislators that are weak, that will not see the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
They just don't.
And Doc, oh, sorry, Chris.
No, you go ahead, Danielle. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned the economy of Texas, and part of your platform is to protect constitutional rights and limited government, standing against government overreach, defending life and parental rights. And this line here is what drew my attention: fostering a godly economy. Would you talk about that? Because I am fascinated by the concept of a godly economy. We can see that these massive companies are facilitating the destruction of our country. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, there's a combination of things. Sure. There's a combination of things. As our founding fathers, not only the founding fathers, but before that, John Knox, when he was in Scotland, he went and interposed for the people of Scotland, the serfs essentially, with the lords, and said, here are 71 scriptures that pertain to their freedom, which then our founding fathers used a lot of, as well as John Locke, another famous constitutionalist, or understanding God's law and natural law. So when we look at that, then we just look at the preamble of the Constitution, which is gives it to the Almighty Creator, but also we look at the Bill of Rights. All political power, Article 1, Section 2, all political power is inherent in the people, not the governor, not the lieutenant governor, not in the body of the House or the Senate or the representatives. That to me, when you look at this and you say this thing was written on godly principle, then we execute it. Now, when it comes to economy, what that means is that the free cheese that we give out, the entitlement programs, that is there for a mom that has a kid, right, that just can't afford to get out of her debt, to help her. We are to help the weak, the oppressed, right? It is incumbent upon us, godly principle. Now, people will then say, well, you're separation of church and state. No, separation of church and state was not a theocracy with the Church of England. Separation of church and state is that. When it comes to how you lead, if I was a Muslim, like the one in New York right now, Mamdani, then you're going to say that his faith is going to, push him a certain way to make wise decisions. I read Proverbs. I go over it when I get back to the end of one. I keep going back to it because you need wisdom. Wisdom is what we seek, and so that then goes and it trickles down. So when I'm looking for people to work on my staff, right, in all the different areas, and I can't control who the comptroller is going to be, or the ag commissioner, or those things, but for the people that are going to work, the doers, right, the actual widget people, I have to find people of peace. They don't have to pass a test with me, because that is what they said. I have to have a religious test. It's not that. Are they people of peace? Do they exhibit the fruits? I won't even ask them, because it's, to me, I can tell already. But you've got to put people in those positions that are going to have character and not be a character. There's a difference. I learned that as a young soldier. And so those things right there, now we start using those principles again in the doctrine of lesser magistrates, which says, I am to protect the state from government overreach, and I am to protect the rest of the state from Austin, the state, decentralized, to make things simpler, to move it down to those people at the lower level. And it's not lower in the sense of hierarchy, it down to the ground, to the lower communities, and get that information out to them so that they understand you have the authorities, to operate in your system. Because Texas is like 8 different countries. There's just a lot of cultures here. Got the Piney Woods and the Big Bend, and all the way from the Rio Grande to Red River. It's a huge state, and we don't forget you out there, El Paso. You are West Texas, not Odessa.
Yeah. What people forget, Doc, it's a very interesting point you touch on. What people forget is that it's not just the federal government that can visit tyranny on the American people. The Texas state government, the Louisiana state government, the Mississippi state government, So the responsibility of leaders like you and local leaders is to make sure that sovereignty is maintained and tyranny is resisted against not only the federal government, but against the state government as well, because
Yeah.
corruption exists, as you know,
Yes,
at
sir.
all levels. And I
It
think
sure
that's
does.
really important to Tocqueville. You mentioned Locke
Mhm.
and John Knox, but de Tocqueville, as you know, wrote Democracy in America, and he emphasized multiple times in that book that the best way to guard against corruption is to have the lever of power as close to the people as it can possibly be.
That's it.
And what does that mean? That means local government making their own decisions
That's it.
about their
Decentralized.
lives. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And then another guy were in that era, roughly the French Revolution, Frederic Bastiat. He wrote the law. It's a great treatise, and it basically, I'll summarize it. Here's the cliff notes. It's incumbent. It is the job of the legislator to unlawfully plunder those that create, that make things, that do things, the producers. He was talking about in France. He was pointing at the United States, saying, "But they're doing it right." But
Hmm.
right now, I think we're not doing it right, because it seems like the legislative labyrinth of the Texas Constitution is 100,000 words long. The U.S. Constitution is 7,500 words long. So when I see that, I go, okay, well, then what does that do? Well, it causes you have to have a license to raise bees if you want to sell the honey, right?
Yeah.
We used to be able to sell things in our neighborhood. If I had cows and milk cows, we could trade, and we could trade preserves. My dad traded for preserves that women, made muscadine, preserves, and there you go. I mean,
And
it's
it didn't have to spend 6 months trying to secure a government permit, Doc?
bingo, bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Why do you think it is, Doc, that during the Biden administration, wasn't Governor Abbott the governor of Texas throughout the Biden administration?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's just concede for a second that he has taken more steps to secure the border in Texas and that he's made more of an issue of it now. Why was this not at the top of his agenda during the Biden administration, when so many of these foreigners were pouring into our country?
Right.
Can you point to anything of
Sure.
record that he did during that time to guard the Texas border and secure
Yes.
really Texas sovereignty? What was he
There-
doing?
There was a couple of things. One was the kickoff of Operation Lone Star was 2 years too late. You cannot be reactive. You have to be proactive. There should be a plan on the books, because I was at the highest, not the highest levels, but higher levels of operational, strategic level concerns in Texas. I was in on those conversations, not as the key leader, but as one of the leaders. And so for me, when I'm listening to that, I'm thinking, well, this is going on down there. Should we not be at the border, and should we
And
not
Doc,
shut it down?
he didn't wake up one morning and become governor of a border state. Like, it wasn't a border state before that, right? I mean, the border was there.
It's always been here, and so you have to do your homework. I'm drinking from a fire hose of information on everything from batteries in the ground to beehives. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's because you're going to hear these things when you listen, and you just sit and understand. I sat in the a Crockett Hotel in San Antonio last night, and the night before I was in El Paso with some reform Democrats who want to vote for me because they see that their common sense is the thing that we share, and so this is great. But yeah, there's hope now, and the people are doing it. I mean, it's not me. I just propose a plan, and then and then by God's grace, somebody attacks me, and that makes more people look at us. And so that's really how it's happened. I mean, you take a beating, and then they're like, "Oh, this guy doesn't know. He's just a cowboy. He's not. Oh, he's just an army guy. Oh, he doesn't know. He's not really a doctor. He calls himself doc. Well, yeah, I'm a flight surgeon. That requires being a physician. There's two kinds of docs out there. There's DOs and MDs. I'm a DO. So is my dad, and that's just what it is. But people will use anything. But then when they do that, this is God, planning this for us. Our campaign manager, guess who? Our campaign manager, you're gonna love it. You know him, right? Our campaign, we never filled that slot. Our campaign manager is the Holy Spirit.
That's
Right.
awesome.
We don't pay $10 million or whatever they wanted, $5 million to run as a campaign manager. That's part of the problem, is you've got to have this much money. So you have to be the anointed one, and you start years before. And I know who the next anointed one was to be. And so, you have to start there, because to match $100 million war chest, some people say it's more, a little bit less. That is where the problem is that you have to be the elite class already to come in and take something like this. But when the people do it, and they're given $18.36, that's our #1 donation, because that was the year that Texas became a republic on the 2nd of March.
That is tremendous symbolism. I love that. I love that.
It's bringing it back to the end from the beginning from the end. And and we see that. I'm going to be at San Jacinto on the 2nd, which is Independence Day. That's the place where Texas won their freedom and beat Santa Anna's, you know what, and sent him running. They captured him in 18 minutes. A small force of Texians beat Santa Anna in 18 minutes. So on San Jacinto on the 2nd of this month, we're going to do 18 minutes of prayer there to signify that.
Awesome.
That is so powerful. And you know, the great thing is I'm assuming that they did not have any orders from their governor to run away and not to fight back, which I'm sure was very helpful to them, Doc.
Yeah, well, there was a different breed, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you more of a philosophical question here, Doc. What is it, you know, the governor's inaction for years on the Texas border, allowing these things to happen, not responding in a proactive way to reports from people like you of what was occurring on the border. Was that just incompetence, or is that some philosophical disposition, or is that ideological on his part?
The longer that a lobbyist or a legislator or a elected position is in office, the longer their chance there is for some sort of thing to happen. And here's the 4 things that happen, because I used to work in Guantanamo Bay for a little bit. When you want to figure out why somebody flips, the acronym is MICE. And put this on anybody you know. You want to see, why did they flip? Money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Okay. Now, then you have a subcategory of those, which is omission or commission, right? So it's biblical reference there, but it's either a sin of omission or commission. Either way, it's either malfeasance or malpractice, right? Because you didn't know, but you should know.
And malfeasance distinguished from malpractice, because malfeasance requires the mental element, requires the intent. Yeah.
Correct. It's always intent. When elements of a crime, you have a victim, a perpetrator, and intent, the simplistic form. And so intent is found out in court. But those are things that those are basic philosophical principles that are pretty easy, right? Most people can get it. What I saw with the governor was he always looked good after he did something that DeSantis did, right? He would wait there. That was his poll. That was his first poll. And then people used to joke about it, still do. He's a political windsock. This is what people would say. And I liked the guy when I got here in 2015. He was the new governor. I just came out of Fort Bragg, and I'm like, oh, this guy's getting after it. And then the second term, I started working there. I was on his staff task force during the COVID mission when COVID showed up. And they took me, because I have a little bit of knowledge of bioweapons and things, not knowing that I was actually going to run into a bioweapon. But what I saw was, don't mention the word ivermectin. Don't mention the word hydroxychloroquine. It's on my brief. It's right there. 2020, March 21st. So when you see things from behind, so what do they do to me? I quit saying those words. They sent me to the border. Don't throw me in the briar patch. I mean, because that's where I needed to be anyway.
What was the governor's posture? We've had Dr. Bowden on our show, Mary Talley Bowden, who we have great respect for her. What a hero, what a patriot. Yes, what was the governor's posture as you observed it during?
He handed it. Perfect. Yeah. He handed it all during that time to Department of State Health Services. So HHS, Texas version. And so they could not plan their way out of a paper bag. And so I was there. I watched it. And so they would hem and haw about things and just let it go. But their key focus was masks on people early. Texas did it early. Shutting down churches, keeping liquor stores open, keeping strip bars open. The essential businesses, quote unquote, question mark. And so then the Walmarts, large corporations could stay open. The meat packing plants, only the big ones could stay open, right? Okay, so those are corporations, Tyson's, Jimmy Dean, Pilgrim's Pride, they could stay open. But the mid-level, right? Much of Texas has got a lot of cattle, and it's starting to wane off now because the mid-level got attacked so hard they couldn't process. So you see, this is not a vacuum. There's a lot of different things that all connect to this wheel. It's spokes coming out. And so what I see different is it was a very poor response, because it was a focus on how many beds can we get, how many ventilators can we buy? The first week we spent $54 million in the operations center because I was there. And when I kept giving briefings on, really, my first briefing was, well, perhaps we should give people hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Well, why do you know that over everybody else, Doc? I wasn't a genius. I mean, maybe in the things that I need to know I am, but I'm a plumber on the battlefield. I do trauma on the battlefield is what I did, and I kept pumping people alive. But I'm a physician and I can read, so I understood. I took the FDA information, CDC, and said, "All right, troops, you don't have to take this down here, and we're going to get you some ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine if you get sick, so we can keep this operation going." They came down and said, "You're fired. It ain't about the science; it's about the policy, Doc." This is a 2-star general, and I got fired, so I went to court on it, and that general actually retired conveniently, so he didn't get relieved because he wrote an unlawful order, which then was corroborated by Pete Hegseth when he came and said the mandate was unlawful.
Yeah.
So people in Texas couldn't get the ivermectin, couldn't get the hydroxychloroquine, and the governor sounds to be was AWOL on that issue. As far, yeah,
this is is it commission on purpose? I don't know, but he's taking advice from the wrong people, because I spoke to those same people, his physician in charge of that. I'll save his name. He's a nice guy, but he was weak. Yeah. He just, this is what they want. I said, dude, I just came from Africa where nobody had COVID and they're taking hydroxychloroquine. Could we not do the same? We'll find out about it later, but let's just do that. It's a safe medication. Well, Trump said it. I'm like, what about that? Well, Trump said it. I'm like, well, he's not a doctor. That's great that he said it. Ivermectin, horse paste. I'm like, no, you and I both know we've been using this medication for years. Well, I'm not authorized to use it anymore. So it was taken out of our inventory in the Texas Military Department.
Wow.
Yeah.
How horrific.
What and on the lockdown issue, Doc, I know here in Louisiana, and I know Danielle was right here during all of it. We've had countless small businesses here that had to shut down, never reopened. It fractured families. It was just extraordinarily difficult on Louisiana when our Democrat governor, locked us down for that long. And I think it's absolutely tragic. The whole response to the COVID epidemic, I think, was completely misplaced when, even by the World Health Organization's estimates early on, 0.002% of individuals in the world were vulnerable to any type of threat from COVID. And everything that they did was because of that. I just think the whole thing was predicated on a lie.
Absolutely. It is a fear tactic. And then when you look at that, you say, well, who's behind the fear tactic? I believe the World Health Organization, who was always creating what was called pandemic health emergencies of international concern. So when you make those things and Biden, joined back up with them and started funneling U.S. money back into World Health Organization, Trump comes in and says, we're going to take it out. It's just tit for tat, and we're going with these waves of fear, and then we feel like there's some normalcy. Guess what that does? Here's what it does. It's not cognitive dissonance anymore. It's Stockholm syndrome, because your captors have given you back a little bit, your captors, and then you fall in love with your captor. So as a guy that was trained to do hostage rescue, you go in there and you say, follow me if you want to live, and if you don't, I'm going to pick you up and put you on my shoulder. So that's where we're at. And the way out of that. And here's the way out of it, because go back to SEER, the first question. In survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, when you're trying to live in a prisoner of war camp, the key is little victories, which means I don't fully salute their flag. I do something like this, I don't get slapped in the face, and I go, okay, here. And I got down to here. Oh, good. So the little victories, now we're seeing it because your size media, the other medias, I got a show on Fridays on Cloud Hub. What we do is we just start telling truths. And then the next thing you know, there's little victories. And that's how you get out of Stockholm syndrome collectively. But what's the percentage of people in a nation or a state that you need to be bold and audacious to flip that back around? Between 3% and 15%, depending on the mission. So that's a statistic that we use for unconventional warfare downrange. So those bold, audacious people who have made their little victories, and more are being enlightened to that. I don't use the word woke anymore. They're enlightened. That's where I'm seeing positive net result.
That's awesome. And
Mhm.
Doc, you mentioned that March 2nd is Independence Day for Texas, but March 3rd is your primary.
Yes, it
Would
is.
you remind people or tell people who may not be familiar with Texas or may need to brush up on how the primary system works? You go to
Sure. So
vote
the,
on
yeah,
on Tuesday. What happens after that?
yeah, about 27% of Texas doesn't understand the process because a lot of people don't look at it, and they don't even know there's a primary on the third. So the primary, takes the Democrat side, all the people that are running. I'm just going to keep it real simple here, and all the people that are running on the Republican side, and then independents can go all the way to November and just come right into the race. But you pick a front runner for each of those. Now in Texas, if the governor, let's say I'm going to be positive here, I take 51%, there's no runoff. If I take 50% or anything below, and then he's under me, there's a runoff, and then
A Republican runoff. A Republican runoff.
yes. And then the Democrats have the same situation. So their leader is Gina Hinojosa. Seems like a nice lady. We get to the debate stage. I'll be a statesman, but so then she will probably win this Democratic runoff, and there's going to be a lot of money poured into this race because it's so important. But on the Republican side, if we don't draw a runoff, then he goes all the way to November the 2nd on the general election. And
Against
this
the
is
Democrat.
against the Democrat. And this is an off-cycle primary. So this is hard because for a guy with very little name recognition, other than the freedom side, with COVID and with the counter human trafficking. But truly, it's difficult because you have a short track to run on. It's a 400-meter run. You're going from me filing in November, really truly filing, but stepping into the race in August to March. It's a short time to get around 254 counties and 20 million voters. But remember that off-cycle primaries are very low turnout. So we targeted
which in my view benefits you.
Bingo. And that's because you're bringing them onto your battlefield. This is our Thermopylae. We're not going to run cavalry in the open. We don't have cavalry in the open, but we got this shield to shield small unit that's going to bring 300,000 Persians onto the battlefield and hold them.
And so another thing you have going for you here, Doc, is the fact that from what I can understand, you're not dealing with a massively popular governor. I mean, I don't live in Texas. I don't know exactly what the pulse is there, but my appreciation is that people are not just, even people who kind of like Abbott are not just stoked with enthusiasm to go out and pull the lever.
Roger that. Sentiment analysis shows on the media side, social media side, that we're somewhere around 70 to 89%, depending on what poll that somebody puts out, unofficial poll. There's been some straw polls done in counties, and we're sitting at 80% in many peripheral counties, not in the triangle. The triangle is, is Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. That's where 90% of the GDP comes out of, because if oil gets moved over there in Houston, that's where they sell it. So for me, I have to look at how many do I need? How can I essentially use the term geofence those people to then come out and vote and motivate them to come out and vote? Looking at former voters, Abbott's sitting between 32% and 40% favorability rating right now. Depends on who you look at, and that's it. But like David, he was chastised for taking a census. So we don't do polls. We just go with Holy Spirit says, nope, you're not paying for a poll. We're going to run an effective campaign. And so talking to General Flynn the other day, we were discussing the disparity between the money raised. We are running the most efficient campaign in the history of Texas, possibly the United States, in the disparity level of what we've done compared to the amount spent.
Doc, do you have to worry about illegals or dead people voting in your race?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. It's happening right now. We've got people that are caught on cameras. I don't know if there's any accountability for that. I really don't. I believe there should be. But we have a Secretary of State that allowed the polls to be open, so Democrats and Republicans can vote in them. We told all our people vote on the 3rd. So wherever we're at right now, on the 3rd is when they should go out there. I had to go early because I'm on the road and I had to go home and vote. But and that's something everybody might have to deal with. But we know that the Secretary of State, which is an appointed position, for me, probably day one, Secretary of State's can become an elected position. So there's no conflict of interest between the sitting governor and the Secretary of State.
Absolutely. Doc, are your primary there? I'm asking because I want to make a contrast with Louisiana. Your primary there is closed to anybody but registered Republicans?
No, it's open.
Your Republican primary?
Yes, sir.
Anybody can vote in your Republican primary?
The Republican Party of Texas tried to compel the Secretary of State, which then required a lawsuit. The Secretary of State went outside of the normal channels using the Attorney General's office to adjudicate, if you will, and hired an outside law firm to then go against what the Republican Party of Texas wanted. Right.
So the Republican
Wow.
Party
We're
of
closer
Texas,
than we think.
yeah, well, we are. But the Republican Party of Texas, Doc, to be clear here, wanted a pure closed primary system in Texas?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's what the Republican Party here wants now, because we don't have a pure closed primary system here. We used to have a pure jungle primary where anybody could vote for anybody. Now we do have a sort of a modified closed primary system. And I say modified because we have 850,000 no party voters in Louisiana who can choose between either the Democrat primary or the Republican. Now they can't go back and forth, but they're allowed to vote in Republican primaries. So we really don't have a pure closed primary system in Louisiana. And it sounds like that's similar to the way it is in Texas, despite what the party wanted.
Absolutely. And I told you before, I worked at a think tank where it wasn't my primary job, but Colonel Phil Waldron, who's known, he's been on the internet, you know, see spots on here with Lindell, and when Giuliani and them were looking at the steal on the Trump 2020, those guys are looking at this also from the perspective of, can these current machines, the HAART machines, can they have a man-in-the-middle attack? Right? I listen to them. I'm not the technician on those things, but I'm part of that group, and they're watching it. But you know, when you mobilize a base on the Democrat side, it's done with money. When you mobilize on the true conservative values, then it's done with heart, and that's the difference.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, you know, the good thing about, one of the good things about your campaign, Doc, is that really the issues that you're focused on in your campaign really should not be partisan issues. I know quite a few Democrats and quite a few independents who are just as concerned about our border as Republicans are. I mean, you know, now of course you have the radical left, which, you know, has really an ideological agenda at work, but most thoughtful people, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are very concerned about the same issues that you're concerned about in your campaign.
Right. And that's, I mean, I've got a neighbor in our headquarters that's running a Democratic campaign for a U.S. Congress, and he's a lawyer that's housing this guy to have as his office. And we go out in the lanai on the deck and we talk sometimes. And he's like, the more and more I look at your stuff, the more and more I like it.
Absolutely. I mean, what's not to like there? Have y'all had any debates?
We've had several on the on the runners. You know, the other people come in. Well, we did one where the governor was invited in Van Zandt County, and his staff declined or something happened. I don't know specifically why he didn't show up. If we get into a runoff, he will have to, and then I'm just going to have to tell hard truths. I'll be a statesman. I've tried to go into some venues and just meet with them face to face and just say, could we have a gentlemanly discussion about the future of Texas?
Sure.
I don't fanboy over people that are of fame. I fanboy over people that go down range and protect lives and sometimes don't come home.
Amen. Right? No question about it. Do you think it works to your advantage, Doc, to have a number of other candidates in this primary? Does that help peel votes away from Abbott, or what would be your ideal scenario here?
I've been on a forum stage with 5 of them at once, and we've met on the side, and they're good people, and they all have good intentions. And so I can't say that, you know, I'll just speak for our campaign. Is it going to hurt us? Not this time, because all of those are not like the last time. There was 3 pretty well-known people in Texas when the last election 4 years ago. Alan West, Don Huffines, you know, multimillionaire guy that has a lot. He sunk $10 million of his own money in that campaign. And then Chad Prather, he's a personality. So you have those people running. That split the ticket. It really did. We don't have the same name recognition in the rest of the pack with me. So can I say I'm ahead of them? I believe that, but I won't disparage their runs. I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
Is Danielle touched a minute ago on dead people voting and so forth. Are you concerned about people who are present in Texas illegally trying to vote? Are there being
absolutely. Absolutely. So the two counties that I've dealt with as far as looking into it a little bit deeper was Tarrant County. This was before running for office. This is the funny part. If I've looked at Tarrant County and there were multiple inputs with the same name, but different voter IDs up to 2 to 3 to 4 times. And then down, that's Tarrant County's Fort Worth. And then, and that's a stronghold for the Republicans. Yet we just now have to go into a runoff on a state rep who was the favorite by far, a Republican.
That's the district that Trump won by 18 points. Is that right, Doc?
Yes, sir. So that's concerning. Now she's going to go into runoff, and we'll see what happens. But with the other county is Bexar County, so it's San Antonio, and so that county right now, there's some improprieties taking place. I'm going to keep it, close hold because I don't want to be the next Tina Peters out here, talking about it. But I'm just going to say because we got enough on our plate right now. But there are people looking into it, and Williamson County, another one north of the north of Travis. That's another one where there's cameras watching people do some nefarious things and moving clocks back and changing times. It's alleged right now until we can find out, but we expected it. But we're going to make it too big to steal.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Doc Chambers, Doc, before you go, I have to ask you this final question. This is really a human interest story, but I'm sure a lot of people are interested in it. And I didn't get to ask you about it before the show, and maybe you don't want to talk about it because a lot of war heroes don't want to talk about it. And obviously that's your deference. But what is it? Could you talk a little bit about the episode or what resulted in your being awarded the Purple Heart?
Yes, sir. I can give you the, I always say, people say you're a hero. I'm like, I served with heroes and I brought them back. But that day, particularly going to build a clinic for some people in Baghdad in a somewhat safe area. We weren't going out to get into a gunfight. And my truck had the most antennas on it. That's the one that gets blown up. And it was a howitzer shell buried in the road that was a command detonated. So somebody was detonating it. And it killed my driver. Subsequently, it killed my gunner, who was right next to me, who saved my life because the bulk of that shrapnel went through him and not into me. And then it was back left quarter of the truck. And then my driver eventually had some problems, and he passed as well. So when I remember that day very clearly, 12th of May 2004, the most important part of that story is a year later. And we got off the X, the bad place, and we got to a safe place. The QRF came out. I met a guy the other day on the campaign trail that was part of that quick reaction force that rescued us. I'm like, hey, bro, what's up? What specifically the reminder was a year later when I met Jeff. Jeff is the guy that protected me and saved my life. And I was a captain at the time. And I went a year later to his memorial in Washington State. I met his mom. I said, ma'am, I was responsible for everything that happened or failed to happen that day. I didn't make a bad decision, but that's war. Truck got blown up. And I said, is there anything I can do for you? And she said, and I can tell this story now. It's been since 2004. I couldn't tell it for 5 years. It was just so heartbreaking. And what she said was the thing that was probably the hardest thing I've ever heard from a mom, a single mom with one child who's lost. And this was a year later, so she had some time to heal. And she said, live your life like his life mattered. And I'm like, oh, and it was a touching moment. It was tough. It was tougher for me at the time with her there, but we've become friends over the years. And I just put that out on do we not live our life like capital H, his life mattered, or try to? And so it was a reminder to me as I wear this bracelet with his name on it that every day, those two things I have to remember is his life and Jeff's life.
Amen.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I don't know that it's possible to really say anything else beyond that, other than how grateful we are for your service to our country. I know that you probably carry scars every day from the sacrifices that you've paid for our freedom and our sovereignty. It's never lost on us. And God bless you, sir, for being here. And we are going to continue to beat the drum here and do everything that we can to help you be successful. We're elevating our platform here in Louisiana. Right now, we're the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana, Doc, and we have a lot of listeners and followers over in Texas. And it is just a thrill and a privilege to have you on here and to lend our support to this effort. We could not be prouder or happier to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and Danielle. You guys are worth it. I mean, every Texan, every Louisiana, you guys are worth it. right? Okies, you're worth it. Everybody out there that's possibly listening, you have to remember that, because you're worth it, because Christ died for you and gave and shed his blood for you. That's why you're worth it. Not because you're worth it. It's the flesh.
Yep.
Because
And you would have died for us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Best wishes, Doc. We will be praying for you and watching your results come in on Tuesday.
The joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm no fear in this one.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
What an incredible guy, Chris.
Absolutely. It just never ceases to amaze me. The guys who either gave or were perfectly willing to give the last full measure of devotion for us.
Yeah.
He lives every day with the fact that two of his closest allies are dead and on his watch. Yeah. Even though he did nothing wrong, he did everything by protocol. It's still something that he has to live with. And I love what he said about the mother of his friend, what she told him. Live your life like his life mattered. If that's not enough to get you out of bed in the morning and make you want to charge the hill,
no kidding.
I'm just not sure what would do it.
That's right.
And I'm talking about myself, and everybody else who heard that story can be inspired by it.
It's true. I think Doc said some really interesting things, Chris. And one of the things I think is worth bringing out is, and actually, I think you said this, that Abbott said that spending millions, he spent millions and millions securing the border, and no one has done more. Well, one, no one had the authority to do more. You're the governor of Texas. Number one. Number two, politicians spending money is not a metric of success ever, nor has it ever been.
Usually it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. What did you do, Abbott? Not how much did you spend? If you just look at the campaign, if you just look what Doc said about the campaign disparity in spending, the metrics of success are not dollars spent. And
I really
wish politicians would hone in on that, because they seem to think that it is.
No, if I had a choice, Danielle, obviously, if you had your ideal scenario, you would want plenty of money and you would want the people behind you. But if you had to choose between having tons of money and having the people behind you, I think I'd pick the people. And I think Doc has got increasing numbers of Texans who recognize the gravity of what's going on there and want real change. Yeah. Danielle, what is your observation or view? And I know that you may not have empirical data, but what is your gut feeling about why the governor of Texas was so anemic for so long in his response to the border crisis in Texas?
Well, we say here, Chris, that we're not going to judge intentions. So I'm not going to judge intentions, but I can point to some data. And here's the data. Okay. He just recently came out and declared 2 out of 9 foreign terrorist organizations, what is the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, as foreign terrorist organizations, while Doc said that there were not, 7 others that should have been included in that. So this, to me, looks like we are putting on a show. So it looks like we're doing something while not doing something. And we see that a lot in Louisiana. Obviously, it's about the window dressing. You can call it cutting at the edges. I don't even think it's really that. It's trying to look like you are doing something when you are not doing anything at all. I mean, that's not going to make a measurable difference if the 7 other terrorist organizations run freely throughout the state of Texas. Come on.
Yeah, very true. And the idea that the governor of, what do you think Sam Houston, David Crockett, would think about the fact that the governor of Texas unleashes or turns 12,500 Venezuelans? This is just a microcosm, I think, of the whole deal. But instead of repatriating those people back to their country, he would have turned them, unleashed them into the interior of the United States. I just put them on buses and, I'm getting them out of Texas. I'm doing my job. They're not going to be in Texas anymore. Texas is one of 50 states that formed this union. Yeah. I mean, how myopic is the vision that we're just going to send them somewhere else in the country?
No, it's part of the problem.
Yeah, as though they can't migrate back to Texas, as though they can't
wreak havoc in other places in the country. I don't understand that. And as I told him, Danielle, if that were the only fact that I knew
It would
about
be
this
enough.
governor, I think it is representative. It's very revealing of a broader pattern of permissiveness when it comes to securing the Texas border. We're right next to Texas. We're
Yeah.
right here. Okay. And we are directly affected by the posture of the Texas state government on the border issue. And I think it's massively important. We didn't get a chance to ask Doc what the governor has done about the hundreds of thousands of kids who have been
Yeah.
trafficked through the Texas border and whose whereabouts we still don't know, according to J.J. Carroll. Is he
Yeah.
doing anything about that? I don't know.
Well, we haven't heard anything about it, so it leads me to believe probably not, given the track record thus far. Because if he is a political windsock, as Doc called him, or as others call him, and it seems like he'd be flying that flag pretty bigly right now. But Chris, you asked what do you think Sam Houston and Davy Crockett would be doing, and I just think if you think about our country right now, we have been so heavy laden with laws, with regulations, with the burden of bureaucratic hoops to jump through, the government telling us what we can and can't do. We have become beasts of burden, and we have become domesticated and kind of pathetic. I'm just going to say that because these guys wouldn't have stood for it. We were talking before the show. How many guns do you think there are in Texas? I would venture to say a whole lot.
Well, I know one of my brothers who lives in Texas. I know he's got a few of them, and I think that he is much more of a mindset of Davy Crockett or Sam Houston probably than he is of Greg Abbott. Based upon what I know about him, and I've known him a long time.
Yeah.
My brother Brian, outstanding patriot, lives over in Texas with his kids, right there in Dallas or near Irving. But another issue that I'm stunned by, Danielle, is this. I mean, so you have people pouring into the border, and you're instructed that even if you're fired on, you're not allowed to fire back. You're not
This is my
allowed to
exact
defend
point.
yourself. You're supposed to get into your vehicle and drive away.
This
Who
is
the
my
hell
exact point.
gives an order like that?
Yeah, exactly, Chris. This is my exact point. So you think about the fact that these guys, these heroes who are there protecting us, are doing everything they can to stay within the rule of law, to go by the orders that they are given. At some point, they're unlawful. At some point, they're being set up for failure. At some point, they are fodder for cannon fire, right? At what point do people stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore? Thank God we have President Trump at the helm right now. But, he can't affect every change that we need on the state level. And it does. I pray that Texans get out and vote on Tuesday for Doc. I pray that people stand up and say, we're not going to take this crap from you government leaders any longer. We don't know that you're rightfully there because my thoughts on the elections. But people, the politicians have proven time and time again, Chris, that they cannot be trusted. Most of them cannot be trusted. Most of us do not trust them. On the note of not trusting people, we saw an article yesterday, Katie sent both of us, that Secretary of State Nancy Landry is seeking an additional $25 million so she can purchase her election machines.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just to kind of put it out there, Chris, we have done how many thousands of Louisiana citizens have sent in notes to Secretary Landry, Governor Landry, to AG Murrell saying, we don't want those stinking machines. We want hand-counted paper ballots, hand-counted paper ballots, hand-counted paper ballots. People have thousands and thousands and thousands. I have not received, we the people spearheaded a letter writing campaign. Thousands of people sent in those letters. We have not received one acknowledgement of receipt.
It's absolutely extraordinary to me that you have a president who has repeatedly called for a secure hand-marked paper ballot, both because it's much more secure and because it's much, much less expensive. It's a fraction of the cost. You have Elon Musk saying you should never, ever vote on computers. They're not secure. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who's talking about the vulnerabilities of electronic voting. You have the best cyber experts in the world, including Alex Haldeman, who say that these computer-based voting systems are a irresistible, attractive target for cyber criminals. They are not secure. You've got to transition away from them, except in the case of the disabled who are unable to hand mark a ballot. Other than that, you got to get away from these machines. Yet, when you hear Landry talk, Nancy Landry, you would think that she's totally unaware of the increasing cry from the Trump administration and from national experts to get away from these computers. All she talks about is more money, more money, more money. Oh, it's just a radical faction of people. 90% of the people in Louisiana think our election system is safe and secure, even though she can't give us the poll, even though she doesn't even know who conducted the poll, and she has no idea where to find it. Thanks. That's very, very reliable to give us a sense of where Louisiana stands on this.
Well, Chris, don't you know you have to trust the experts?
Yeah, trust the experts. Just trust the experts. Our founding fathers taught us to be intrinsically skeptical of the experts, to question everything the experts say. Thomas Paine said, government on its very best day is a necessary evil, and on its worst day, it is an intolerable evil. We're supposed to be questioning everything the government says, everything. Yet we still have swaths of citizens in the United States who take everything the government tells them at face value. Our elections are safe and secure. Go get the vaccine. And everything across the board. And fortunately, people are beginning to wake up. And I think President Trump has ripped open the scab. Thank God. I will give him eternal credit for what he has done to expose the deep, deep corruption and fraud in our government. I will always give him credit for doing that. It took a lot of courage. But the bottom line on this election system, Danielle, I've said before, if she continues to go forward, despite her willful ignorance on the issue, this is no longer just a matter of administrative discretion on her part. This is an act of self-incrimination at this point that she will answer for, not only because of the fiscal cost, but because of the extent to which she will be compromising the security of the most fundamental right we have in Louisiana, which is the security of our vote. So you can continue, Secretary of State Landry, to pretend like you don't understand the real issues here for whatever institutional reason you have. I don't know what your motives are, Danielle. You very appropriately pointed out a little while ago, we're not supposed to judge motives, but we can judge the fruit. And the fruit of a $150 million investment in computer-based voting will not be good. It's going to be rank and sour. And my 12-year-old, the 13-year-old on the way home from school today said, Dad, what's the big issue as far as these computers? He goes, heck, Dad, I know how to hack a computer. Apparently, Nancy Landry doesn't understand the fact that 13-year-olds can hack computers. So let's get on the ball and do what we need to do on the secure hand-marked paper ballots right here in Louisiana.
Yeah, and Chris, you have a call to action up at LeCag, right, where people can go and lodge their voice, make sure that their voice is heard on this issue, so that we need an evidence file, right, that this has been absolute treachery and open war against the desires of the people who are the sovereign of the state.
Absolutely. And it's a 2-minute call to action, Danielle. Very, very user-friendly. Even I can do the call to action. I mean, and you know how tech challenged I am. And I appreciate your patience that you are you really are a saint, by the way, Danielle, simply because of the patience that you show me when it comes to my absolute obtuse ignorance about technology. But we trudge along.
You are getting better.
Saint Thanks to my wing lady saint that I have here.
You are getting better and better every day, Chris, every day. A couple of announcements. Next week, we will have William Most back with us Tuesday. He will be giving us an update on Professor Imami's hearing at Southeastern with regard to the carbon capture. That kind of ties into the carbon capture stuff as well. And he'll be giving us kind of what their next steps are going forward. So that will be a very great and interesting conversation, an important conversation. Next week, also Wednesday is Warrior Wednesday. If you are a warrior, if you are a subscriber, give us insight into what you want us to talk about on Wednesday. Either send us a message on the Facebook group or in the Go Collab app, or text us if you have our numbers. If you are not yet a subscriber, join and plan to be on the chat on Wednesday. You can join at join.freedomstate.us or just go to freedomstate.us and click the join button. We'd love for you to subscribe and support us. It's important. It helps us keep doing what we're doing. So we appreciate it. For about the cost of a cup of coffee, a big expensive cup of coffee at Starbucks, about $10 a month.
Absolutely. And it's well worth it. I want to emphasize here, Danielle, that the unique, I think, fact or aspect of the State of Freedom, and LeCag for that matter, is that we do not accept special interest support. We do not accept special interest donations, which on the one hand makes it more difficult to get the resources and to build the infrastructure. But the positive is that we're not compromised. We're not compromised to the people who would rather us censor the truth, rather say things that extol them when really they're lies. So we're on the path of building infrastructure, but every dollar that is donated to the State of Freedom is fuel for really what I think is the only pure constitutionally conservative voice in the state of Louisiana, because we are completely uncompromised. And the day, Danielle, and I know you agree with me here, the day that we have to come on the State of Freedom and tailor our message or corrupt the truth in order to keep a donor or keep a supporter on the State of Freedom is the day that you and I will go down and start standing on the street corner with megaphones, because we are not going to compromise our message ever. And the citizens of this state know that. They know that we're expanding, and they know that we are rapidly becoming the portal of conservative constitutional truth in Louisiana, and we're going to revolutionize the way political advocacy is done in our state. It will happen. And you said we proceed from the posture of victory. You told me that, Danielle, the very first time we ever went on the podcast. She said, Chris, hope is a beautiful thing, but think in your minds that we already have the victory. We just have to be faithful to what God is calling us to do and be faithful instruments. He's already done it for us.
Amen, Chris. Amen. Well, with that, I guess have a great afternoon and a great weekend, Chris. I will be talking to you probably sometime today about the tremendous number of bills that the legislature has pre-filed, and we're going to be digging into that some more. I know you've been more than eyeballs deep in it already.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, Danielle.
And the ugly is so ugly. The ugly is so ugly.
But there is good, there is bad, and there is very, very ugly. Yeah. And we're going to try to cut the knees out from under the bad stuff. So I look forward to talking about that. I can't wait to come on and do a legislative summary. As I said, we have calls to action up. Go to lecag.org and do every call to action. It'll take you a total of about 5 minutes, and it works. So God bless you, Danielle. And in the words of the one and only William F. Buckley Jr., inveighing we shall go.
God bless you, Chris. I'll talk to you soon. God bless you.
Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Pokey Claw right here in Mid-City in Baton Rouge. It's Baton Rouge's newest claw machine arcade. Jenin absolutely loves it. Packed with Pokemon gear and fun for all ages. You got to go to Pokey Claw. I love it. Jenin wants to go there every Saturday. It's just a wonderful place to go for the family, for the kids.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's LACAG.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana.